The desert remembers what men try to forget. Blood seeps into sand. Secrets whisper through canyons. Time stands still beneath an unforgiving sun. 7 years. 2,555 days of exile, of penance. A man pouring coffee at a forgotten outpost while ghosts haunt his peripheral vision. They said the explosion was an accident, a tragedy, a footnote in a classified report. They lied. Now the past resurfaces like a body in the sand. Dark vehicles appearing on the horizon. Armed men studying old maps. Familiar eyes watching from shadows. The border has always been a wound. A jagged line separating nations, separating past from present, separating the living from the dead. Tonight that wound reopens. Some men run from violence. Others carry it inside them dormant, but never extinguished. A pilot light of rage waiting for the right moment to ignite. At the edge of nowhere where justice fades and vengeance blooms, a reckoning approaches. This is the last frontier, the final line between redemption and damnation. And it burns. The desert had a way of preserving things. Memories, regrets, ghosts. Ethan Reeves knew this better than most as he stood on the weathered porch of the last frontier, watching the sun bleed across the horizon. The station part, gas stop part, diner part, last refuge, before the nothing that lay beyond had been his sanctuary and prison for 7 years now. Its weathered wooden sign creaked in the evening breeze, the paint faded by relentless sun and occasional sandstorms that swept across southern Arizona. 48 years had carved deep lines around Ethan's eyes. His skin, once military smooth, now resembled the cracked earth that stretched toward Mexico. His body remained hard efficient, a machine built for violence that now poured coffee and pumped gas. Only his eyes betrayed him. They had seen too much, held too much. Sunset painted the station in copper and gold, transforming the mundane into something almost beautiful. Almost. Inside, Sarah Collins wiped down the counter for her night shift. Her movements were practiced efficient. At 39, the widow carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had rebuilt a life from splinters. Her teenage son's accident had left him with a permanent limp, and her with permanent fear, but they endured, like the desert demanded. "Looks like a storm brewing south," she called out, her voice carrying through the open door. Ethan nodded, eyes fixed on the distant darkness gathering over Mexico. Not the only thing coming in from the south these days. They didn't need to elaborate. The border just 15 miles away had always been a wound that never quite healed. Lately, the bleeding had gotten worse. More desperate crossings, more violence, more whispers about the shadow organization moving both people and poison across invisible lines. The radio behind the counter crackled with static before settling on the local station. News about water shortages. A missing teenager 2 counties over. The perpetual background noise of a world that had forgotten this place existed. For 7 years, Ethan had made this forgotten outpost his home. After what happened in Kandahar, after what happened to Lisa and Emma disappearing, felt like the only option. The honorable discharge papers said PTSD. The nightmares said guilt. The empty bottles of bourbon collecting dust under his bed said neither mattered anymore. The last frontier stood at the crossroads of nowhere and forgotten. A single-story building of weathered wood and faded dreams. The diner portion had 6 booths and a counter with red vinyl stools that had cracked years ago. The small market carried essentials and emergency supplies. 2 gas pumps outside looked like relics from another decade. And on the wall behind the register hung the map, yellowed, creased, marked with lines that meant nothing to most. To Ethan, they were veins of a forgotten history, the tunnel system built during the Cold War, a subterranean network that stretched beneath the border. Government paranoia carved into the earth, then abandoned when the world moved on. Mike Hernandez's patrol car pulled up outside, raising a cloud of dust that glowed orange in the setting sun. The sheriff had been Ethan's first friend here. Now, months from retirement, the man carried his badge like something heavy, something that had worn grooves into his soul. "Evening, strangers," Mike said as he entered, his uniform crisp despite the heat. He nodded to Sarah before settling onto a stool across from Ethan. His face, lined by years of desert sun and desert troubles, split into a familiar smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Coffee's fresh," Ethan said, sliding a mug across. "Better be. Day I've had." Mike sipped, then sighed. Border Patrol picked up 3 more bodies out by Devil's Canyon. Dehydration. Family with a kid couldn't have been more than 12. The silence that followed held the weight of helplessness, of knowing that tomorrow there would be more. You ever think about moving on, Ethan? Mike asked, not for the first time. This place, it's a pause button, not a life. Ethan's jaw tightened. Some of us don't get to hit play again, Mike. The unspoken hung between them. The classified operation, the explosion that killed Lisa and Emma, the official report that called it a terrorist attack a tragic coincidence, the whispers that suggested otherwise. The bell above the door jingled, ending the moment. Elena Vasquez entered, wiping grease from her hands. The mechanic's garage across the road was the only other business for miles. At 35, Elena carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had built strength through necessity. Her dark eyes missed nothing, especially when they rested on Ethan. Your generator's fixed, she told Sarah. Should hold through the summer if you're gentle with it. You're an angel, Sarah replied. Coffee, please, and whatever's left of that apple pie. Outside, the desert darkened by degrees. Stars emerged in different pinpricks of light in the vast emptiness. The road that cut through it all remained empty in both directions, almost peaceful, until the rumble of engines shattered the quiet. Ethan felt it before he heard it, a vibration in his bones, the old instincts flaring to life. He moved to the window as 3 motorcycles materialized from the darkness, headlights cutting twin paths through the night. Behind them, a black SUV with tinted windows crawled like a predator. Vultures, Mike muttered, standing. His hand moved instinctively to his holster. The motorcycle gang had emerged in the past year, small-time thugs with big-time connections, marking territory through intimidation and violence. Their insignia, a circling vulture against a blood-red sun, had become a warning sign in border communities. Ethan felt the familiar calm settle over him, the dangerous stillness that had kept him alive in places where living wasn't guaranteed. Sarah locked the back. Elena, you might want to step into the storeroom. I don't hide from men, Elena replied, but moved behind the counter nonetheless. The motorcycles pulled up in a practice formation. 3 men dismounted with the lazy confidence of predators. Ray Carter, their leader, removed his helmet last. Tall, lean, with a face made angular by ambition and cruelty. The vulture tattoo crawled up his neck, its beak ending just below his ear. The SUV remained idling, its driver invisible behind darkened glass. The bell jangled as they entered. Ray first, followed by his lieutenants, a mountain of a man called Diesel, and a wiry, twitchy figure known only as Tick. The smell of leather sweat and something chemical followed them. Well, ain't this cozy? Ray drawled, eyes scanning the empty diner before settling on Mike. Sheriff, bit far from town, aren't you? Just coffee and conversation, Ray. Something you need. Ray's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just passing through. Long ride ahead. He turned his attention to Ethan. 2 coffees black, and whatever food won't kill us. Ethan didn't move. We're closing. The atmosphere shifted, molecules rearranging themselves around the challenge. Diesel took a half step forward, but Ray held up a hand. Now that's not friendly, Ray said, voice soft with menace. Especially when we've come all this way. Mike stood, badge catching the light. You heard him. Take your business elsewhere. All due respect, Sheriff, but your jurisdiction ends at the town line. Out here, things get fuzzy. Ray's attention shifted to the map on the wall. His interest suddenly piqued. That's an interesting piece of history. Ethan moved slightly, positioning himself between Ray and the map. It's nothing. Old mining charts. Ray's eyes narrowed, recognizing the lie. Mind if I take a closer look? History buff, you know? I mind, Ethan said. The tension in the room crystallized. Diesel's massive hands curled into fists. Tick's fingers twitched toward the bulge in his jacket. Sarah stepped back, reaching below the counter, where Ethan knew she kept a shotgun. Mike's hand rested openly on his sidearm now. This doesn't need to get complicated, Ray. For a moment, violence seemed inevitable, hanging in the air like the static before lightning strikes. Then Ray smiled, a cold and calculating expression. Another time, then. He backed toward the door, never taking his eyes off Ethan. Before leaving, he pulled out a phone, aimed it at the map, and snapped a photo. For my collection. They left as they had come, in a cloud of dust and menace. The SUV followed its presence like a shadow that remained even after the vehicles disappeared into the darkness. That wasn't good, Mike said, holstering his weapon. They weren't here for coffee, Elena agreed, emerging from behind the counter. They were scouting. Ethan stared at the now empty road. The familiar hollowness in his chest had been replaced by something else. Something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Purpose. They wanted the map, he said quietly. They know about the tunnels. Mike's face darkened. That's impossible. Those tunnels have been sealed for decades. Half of them collapsed after the '89 earthquake. Not all of them. Ethan's voice was flat. And someone wants them open. Later, after Mike had left to radio in the incident, and Sarah had gone to check on her son, Ethan found himself alone with Elena in the near-empty diner. The silence between them was comfortable. The silence of two people who recognized the shape of each other's scars without needing to see them. You know something, she said finally, not a question. Ethan considered lying, considered the weight of secrets against the potential cost of truth. 7 years of isolation had taught him caution, but something in Elena's steady gaze demanded honesty. Before I came here, he began the words unfamiliar after years of silence. I hunted men like them. Men who trafficked in people and drugs and misery. My last mission went wrong. Elena's eyes never left his face. Your family. Yes. The word felt excavated from somewhere deep and painful. Official reports said they were collateral damage in a terrorist attack. Convenient timing. You think otherwise? Ethan stared at his scarred hands. I think I got too close to someone powerful, someone who called himself the architect. Ghost in the intelligence community. Mastermind behind a network that stretched from South America to Canada. And now you think he's found you. Not me. Ethan nodded toward the map. Those tunnels are a smuggler's dream. Direct access impossible to monitor effectively. Elena was silent for a long moment. What will you do? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. For 7 years, Ethan had been a ghost himself. Existing, not living. Punishing himself for survival. I don't know, he admitted. But that night, for the first time since burying his family, Ethan Reeves opened the locked trunk beneath his bed. The contents lay undisturbed. Weapons, documents, the remnants of a life dedicated to hunting monsters who wore human faces. Among them, a file labeled simply, Architect. The desert night pressed against the windows, vast and indifferent. Something had awakened in him. Something he had believed dead. As he spread the old intelligence reports across his kitchen table, Ethan felt the weight of 7 years of grief and guilt shift slightly. If the architect had found him, perhaps it was time to resume the hunt. The morning arrived in layers of gold and amber, painting the desert in momentary beauty before the heat asserted itself. Ethan had slept little, his mind racing with possibilities and connections. The vulture's interest in the tunnel map, the timing, the presence watching from the SUV. He made his first call before sunrise. Jackson Wright had been part of his team years ago, a former Delta operator who now drove long-haul trucks across the Southwest. Few words passed between them, but arrangements were made. Jackson would arrive within days. By noon, the temperature had climbed past 100 degrees. The air shimmered above the asphalt, creating phantom pools that disappeared upon approach. Inside the diner, the ancient air conditioning unit fought a losing battle against the heat. Sarah arrived for her day shift, her son Jamie in tow. At 17, the boy's features were still softening into manhood, but his eyes held an old wariness. The car accident 3 years ago had left him with a permanent limp and a quiet rage that occasionally surfaced. Mom said there was trouble last night, Jamie said, settling at the counter with a textbook. Homeschooled since the accident, he spent most days at the diner. Ethan poured him orange juice. Nothing serious. Vultures, though, the boy pressed. I heard they're connected. Mexican cartels. Maybe worse. You hear a lot for someone who never leaves this place. Jamie tapped his laptop. Don't need to leave. World comes to you these days. Ethan considered this, not for the first time, struck by how different this generation was from his own. Information at their fingertips, horrors and wonders equally accessible. What else have you heard about them? Jamie's eyes lit with interest at being taken seriously. They started appearing about a year ago. Small stuff at first, protection rackets in border towns, moving product for bigger outfits. Then they got ambitious. Now they're saying they have a backer, someone with real resources. Where'd you hear that? Forums, dark web, places where people talk when they think no one's listening. Ethan nodded, filing the information away. You be careful with that. Some doors are best left unopened. The boy's smile was too knowing for his years. Says the man with a trunk full of weapons under his bed. Before Ethan could respond, Elena entered, her face tight with concern. She gestured Ethan outside, away from Sarah and Jamie. There's a problem, she said when they stood in the shadow of the gas pumps. 2 men came to my garage this morning, asking questions about you. What kind of questions? Your background, how long you've been here, whether you have visitors. She hesitated. They knew your real name, Ethan, not the one you use now. The implications settled like lead in his stomach. His cover identity had been carefully constructed. If it was compromised, did they threaten you? Not directly. They didn't have to. Her eyes met his, unflinching. What's happening, Ethan? The truth. He owed her that much. I think the man who had my family killed has found me, or rather found something he wants, and he's decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Elena absorbed this without visible reaction. These tunnels, they're real? Very. Built during the Cold War as escape routes if the Soviets ever invaded Mexico. Abandoned by the government but not forgotten by everyone. And you think these vultures work for the man who killed your family? I think they're his advanced team, testing defenses, gathering intelligence. Elena's gaze drifted to the horizon where heat waves distorted reality itself. What are you going to do? The question echoed their conversation from the previous night, but now carried more urgency, more weight. First, I need to confirm my suspicions. There's someone I need to see in Tucson. You're leaving. Just for the day. Can you keep an eye on things here on Sarah and Jamie? Elena nodded. Of course. But Ethan, be careful. If these people found you once, he understood her concern. For 7 years, he had lived in self-imposed exile. Stepping back into the world meant leaving traces, creating opportunities for those who might be watching. I'll be back before dark, he promised. The drive to Tucson took just under 2 hours, the landscape unchanging in its brutal beauty. Saguaro cacti stood like sentinels against the empty sky. Occasional rock formations broke the monotony, ancient teeth jutting from the earth gums. Dr. Thomas Reed's clinic sat on the outskirts of the city, a modest building that served primarily veterans and the uninsured. The waiting room was half full when Ethan arrived. No one made eye contact. Each person isolated in their own pain, their own struggle. The receptionist looked up as he approached. Can I help you? Tell Dr. Reed that Ethan is here. He'll understand. 10 minutes later, he was ushered into a small office where Thomas Reed sat behind a cluttered desk. At 62, the former military surgeon had lost none of his sharpness. His silver hair was still military short, his posture ramrod straight, even seated. 7 years, Reed said by way of greeting. You look like hell. Good to see you too, Doc. I assume this isn't a social call? Ethan placed a file on the desk between them. I need you to look at something. Reed opened it, recognizing immediately the autopsy reports on Lisa and Emma Reeves. His expression darkened. Why now, Ethan? We've been through this. The explosion was targeted, Ethan finished, but I could never prove it. Now I think the man responsible has resurfaced. Reed sighed, the weight of old grief visible in the slump of his shoulders. What do you want from me? You were the one who identified them, who examined the bodies. I need to know if there was anything at all, that didn't match a standard blast trauma. For a long moment, Reed stared at the file without opening it further. Then, with clinical detachment, he began to flip through the pages. The official cause of death was extensive blast trauma, consistent with an improvised explosive device. Burns, shrapnel wounds, pulmonary damage from the pressure wave. But, Reed hesitated, there was an anomaly in the toxicology report. Trace amounts of succinylcholine in their systems. A paralytic, Ethan said, the implications cascading through his mind. They weren't just collateral damage in an explosion. They were deliberately killed beforehand. I can't confirm that, Reed cautioned. The levels were barely detectable. Could have been contamination from the hospital where the bodies were processed. You don't believe that? Reed closed the file. No, I don't. I filed a supplementary report requesting further investigation. It was denied. Classified. I was ordered to destroy my copies of the original findings. But you didn't. A ghost of a smile touched Reed's lips. I'm a Dr. Ethan. I took an oath to do no harm. Hiding the truth about what happened to your family, that would have been harm. The confirmation landed like a physical blow. After 7 years of uncertainty, of nightmares, where he questioned his own suspicions, the truth was both vindication and horror. They were murdered. Ethan said the words strange in his mouth. Executed. It appears that way. Reed leaned forward. But Ethan, this changes nothing about what you should do now. The people who did this, if they're as powerful as you, believe they won't hesitate to finish what they started. I'm counting on it. The drive back to the last frontier was a blur of desert and memory. The setting sun painted the landscape in blood and gold, a beauty that seemed obscene against the darkness of Ethan's thoughts. His family hadn't died in a random act of terrorism. They had been targeted, eliminated by the same shadowy figure he had been hunting. As he crested the final hill, the last frontier came into view. The weathered building stood defiant against the encroaching night, a single outpost of light in the gathering darkness. But something was wrong. 2 motorcycles were parked outside. No sign of Elena's truck. No sign of Sarah's ancient sedan. Ethan slowed years of training taking over. He pulled off the road half a mile before the station, killing the engine and lights. From the glove compartment, he retrieved a 9mm handgun, one of the few he kept outside the trunk of weapons. Moving through the gathering dusk, he approached from the rear of the building. The desert silence was absolute. No voices, no movement beyond the slight stirring of curtains in an open window. Through the back door, he entered the storage room. Empty shelves cast long shadows in the dimness. The door to the diner was ajar, allowing a sliver of light to penetrate the darkness. He could hear them now. 2 voices. Tick's nervous, rapid cadence and Diesel's rumbling bass. Should have been back by now, Tick was saying. Ray doesn't like waiting. Shut up, Diesel growled. He'll be here. Then we grab him the map and go. What about the others? The woman and the kid? Not our problem. Boss just wants Reeves and the information. Ethan's blood ran cold. Sarah and Jamie. Where were they? As if in answer, a muffled sound came from the walk-in cooler at the far end of the kitchen. A thump followed by a scraping noise. Making his decision, Ethan moved silently through the kitchen. The cooler door was secured with a padlock that hadn't been there that morning. From inside, he could hear Sarah's muffled voice pitched low with fear or anger. Using a knife from the rack, he pried open the padlock with practiced efficiency. The door swung open to reveal Sarah and Jamie huddled against the far wall, bound with zip ties. Elena lay unconscious beside them, a darkening bruise spreading across her temple. Ethan, Sarah gasped. They came looking for you. Said they had questions about the map. Quickly, he cut their restraints. Are you hurt? We're fine, Jamie said, his voice steady, despite the fear in his eyes. But they hurt Elena when she tried to fight back. Ethan checked her pulse, strong and steady. The wound was superficial, but she'd have a hell of a headache when she woke. Get her to the back door, he instructed, handing Sarah the keys to his truck. Wait there. If you hear shooting, take off toward town. Don't stop for anything. Sarah hesitated. What are you going to do? Ethan didn't answer. The cold clarity of mission had descended familiar after years of absence. 2 hostels, confined space, multiple exits. He moved back toward the diner, gun held ready. Through the crack in the door, he could see Tick pacing nervously while Diesel lounged in a booth, massive arms crossed over his chest. Where the hell is Ray? Tick muttered. He said 20 minutes tops. Relax, Diesel said. Probably got held up with the boss. The boss, Tick repeated, voice dropping. You ever see his face? Everyone says he's... The sound of an approaching vehicle cut him off. Headlights swept across the diner's interior as a car pulled up outside. Finally, Diesel grunted, standing. Ethan tensed, preparing to move. If Ray was returning with reinforcements, the odds would shift dramatically. Through the window, he saw Mike Hernandez's patrol car come to a stop. The sheriff stepped out, hand resting casually on his holster. "Shit," Tick hissed. "It's the cop." "Take him," Diesel ordered. "Quick and quiet." Ethan's plans shifted. Mike was walking into an ambush. 2 against 1 with Mike unaware of the danger. The bell above the door jangled as Mike entered. Sarah Ethan Place looks closed, but Diesel emerged from the shadows, a massive hunting knife in his hand. "Evening, Sheriff." Mike's hand moved to his gun, but Tick had circled behind him. "I wouldn't," Tick said, pressing a pistol to the back of Mike's head. In the tense tableau that followed, none of them noticed Ethan slipping through the kitchen door. "What is this?" Mike asked, voice steady despite the circumstances. "You boys are adding kidnapping and assaulting an officer to your resumes." "Just business," Diesel replied. "Nothing personal." "Where's Sarah and the boy if you've hurt them?" "They're fine," Tick said. "Cooler broke, though. Hope they don't get too cold." Mike's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're stepping in. Whatever he's paying you, it's not enough." Diesel frowned. "Who's paying us?" "The architect," Mike said. "Your boss's boss." The name landed like a stone in still water, ripples of reaction spreading outward. Tick's hand twitched nervously. Diesel's face registered surprise, then alarm. "How do you know that name?" Diesel demanded. "Because I've been watching him for a long time," Mike replied. "Just like he's been watching Ethan." The confession hung in the air for a heartbeat before its implications registered with Ethan. Mike knew, had always known, about the architect, about the danger that had followed Ethan to this place. "Enough talk," Diesel growled. "Tie him up with the others." "That won't be necessary," came a new voice from the doorway. All heads turned to see Ray Carter standing there, silhouetted against the headlights of the black SUV outside. In his hand was a pistol aimed casually at Mike. "We have what we need," Ray continued, holding up his phone. "The map is already being analyzed, and our friend the sheriff has just confirmed what we suspected." His cold gaze fixed on Mike. "That Ethan Reeves is indeed the man our employer has been searching for." "You're making a mistake," Mike said. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Ray's smile was devoid of humor. "Oh, I think we do. The question is, Sheriff, do you know who you're protecting?" The tension in the room shifted as Ray gestured to someone outside. The driver's door of the SUV opened, and a figure emerged from the shadows. Ethan, hidden in the kitchen doorway, felt his blood freeze as the newcomer stepped into the light. A face he had hunted in nightmares for 7 years. A ghost whose existence had been denied by every official channel. Victor Torres, the architect. Tall and lean, with the precise movements of a former soldier, Victor carried himself with the confidence of absolute power. His silver hair was immaculately styled, his suit expensive but practical. Only his eyes betrayed the predator beneath the polished exterior, cold and calculating. "Sheriff Hernandez," Victor said, his voice cultured, almost pleasant. "It's been some time." Mike's face drained of color. "Torres, you said you'd never come here." "Circumstances change," Victor replied. "The tunnels have become necessary to our operation, and the opportunity to finally close the Reeves chapter was too perfect to ignore." Ethan felt the world narrow to a single point. This man, this monster who had ordered the execution of his wife and daughter, who had destroyed his life and then denied him even the closure of certainty. His finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could act, Victor continued. "I know you're listening, Ethan. I've known you were here for years, watching you grieve, watching you hide. I could have killed you 100 times over." The revelation staggered Ethan. Years. Victor had known for years. "Why didn't you?" Mike asked, giving voice to Ethan's stunned silence. Victor's smile was terrible in its gentleness. "Because death would have been a mercy. I wanted him to live with the pain, with the uncertainty. A fitting punishment for a man who came so close to destroying everything I built." He moved further into the diner, his gaze sweeping the room as if searching for Ethan's hiding place. "But now the game must end. The tunnels are too valuable to leave in play. And Ethan, well, 7 years of suffering seems adequate, doesn't it?" From his vantage point, Ethan could see Sarah and Jamie at the back door, Elena supported between them. They had a clear path to his truck. If he created a distraction, his decision was made in an instant. Rising from his crouch, he fired 2 quick shots. Not at Victor or his men, but at the ancient propane tank beneath the diner stove. The explosion was immediate and devastating. A fireball erupted from the kitchen, blowing out windows and sending furniture flying. In the chaos that followed, Ethan moved not toward the back door, but toward Mike, who had been thrown to the ground by the blast. Gunfire erupted wild and panicked in the smoke-filled room. Bullets splintered wood around them as Ethan dragged Mike toward the exit. Outside, he saw his truck peeling away, Sarah at the wheel. Good. They were safe, at least for now. You knew, Ethan said as they took cover behind Mike's patrol car. All these years you knew he was watching me. Mike's face was a mask of regret and pain. He had leverage, Ethan. My daughter in Phoenix. Her family. He threatened them if I ever warned you. Betrayal burned like acid. So you let me live in ignorance. Let me think my family died in an accident. I did what I had to do to protect my own. Mike replied, the admission torn from somewhere deep and wounded. And I made sure you stayed hidden. Safe. Before Ethan could respond, the patrol car's windows exploded in a hail of bullets. Victor's men had regrouped, advancing through the smoke. We have to go, Mike urged. He'll have the whole team here within hours. Ethan's gaze returned to the burning diner. The last frontier, his refuge for 7 years, was engulfed in flames. Another home destroyed. Another life uprooted. But this time he wasn't running from the fight. This time he was running toward it. As they peeled away in Mike's patrol car, Ethan looked back to see Victor Torres standing amidst the destruction, watching them go. Even at a distance, Ethan could feel the man's cold certainty, the promise in his posture. This was just the beginning. The road stretched before them, dark and uncertain. Behind them, the last frontier burned against the night sky, orange flames consuming wood and memory alike. The shadows had taken form at last, and in their wake only fire remained. Desert highways at night held their own kind of truth. Stripped of color of distraction, they revealed the bones of the land and the souls of those who traversed them. Mike's patrol car ate up the mile's headlights, carving a narrow path through absolute darkness. Ethan sat in rigid silence, the betrayal still fresh, still burning. Where are we going? He finally asked, voice rough from smoke and unspoken accusations. Mike's hands tightened on the wheel. Safe house, old hunting cabin about 40 miles north. Nobody knows about it except me. Like nobody knew about Victor watching me for 7 years. The words hung between them, sharp-edged and dangerous. Mike flinched but kept his eyes on the road. I did what I could, Ethan. Kept his people at a distance. Fed him just enough to keep him satisfied without revealing anything important. He knew where I was. What else did you tell him? Mike's profile was granite in the dashboard light. Nothing about your investigation. Nothing about the evidence you'd gathered before Lisa and Emma died. The unspoken hung between them. He had my daughter Ethan, her husband, their 2 little girls. Mike's voice cracked slightly. Said he'd make it look like a murder-suicide, that no one would question the official report. Just like no one had questioned the report about Lisa and Emma. Something in Ethan shifted. Not forgiveness, the wound was too fresh for that, but understanding. The corrupting power of love. The impossible choices it forced. I need to find Sarah and the others, Ethan said, changing course. They'll be targets now. Already taken care of. Mike tapped his radio. Called in a favor with Border Patrol. They're being escorted to a safe location in Tucson. The cabin materialized out of the darkness like a mirage. Small, weather-beaten, nearly invisible against the surrounding scrubland. Inside was sparse but functional, a wood stove, 2 cots, a table with mismatched chairs. The musty air spoke of long abandonment. Power's from a generator out back, Mike explained, lighting a kerosene lamp. Water from a well. Not much, but it'll keep you off the grid for a few days. Days won't be enough, Ethan replied, checking the windows, cataloging sight lines and potential approaches. Old habits never truly forgotten. Victor won't stop until he has the tunnels. And me. Then what's your play? Ethan considered the question. For 7 years he had been a ghost. Hiding. Now he would need to become something else. A hunter again. First, we need to understand what he's planning with those tunnels. Second, we need allies. Mike nodded. I've still got some contacts in Border Patrol, DEA. Could make some calls. Do it, but carefully. Victor has reach in official channels. As Mike stepped outside to use his radio, Ethan took stock of their situation. The cabin was defensible but isolated. They had Mike's service weapon and the handgun Ethan had carried, plus whatever supplies were stored here. Not enough for a prolonged conflict. His mind circled back to Jackson Wright. The former Delta operator was still en route, unaware of the escalation. One ally at least who Victor couldn't know about. When Mike returned, his expression was grim. Border Patrol lost contact with Sarah's escort 20 minutes ago. 2 agents down, no sign of Sarah Jamie or Elena. The news hit like a physical blow. Victor. Has to be. His people must have been monitoring radio traffic. Ethan's fingers curled into fists. More innocents dragged into his war. More lives hanging in the balance because of his presence in theirs. We need to move, he decided. This place is too isolated. If they find us here, there's no escape. Where then, every law enforcement agency in 3 states will be looking for us by morning. Ethan thought of the only other person he trusted. Dr. Reed in Tucson. He has connections in the VA hospital network, places where we can regroup, make contact with Jackson. Dawn found them on the outskirts of Tucson, the city hazy in the first light. They had abandoned the patrol car, too easily tracked, and continued in an ancient pickup truck Mike had stored behind the cabin. For emergencies. Shakut free. The Veterans Affairs Hospital complex was just coming to life. Staff changing shifts, early patients arriving for appointments. Dr. Reed met them at a side entrance, his face lined with concern. You look worse than yesterday, he told Ethan. Both of you. It's been a long night, Ethan replied, and it's about to get longer. Reed led them through service corridors to a small office deep in the hospital's administrative section. You can stay here for now. Security's good, and I'm the only one with access to this wing after hours. Once inside, Ethan outlined the situation. The attack at the last frontier, Victor's reappearance, the missing Sarah Jamie and Elena. Jesus, Reed muttered. After all this time, he just appears. The tunnels are the key, Ethan said. He needs them for something big, something worth exposing himself for. The question is what, Mike added, and how soon? Reed considered this. I might be able to help with that. One of my patients, former intelligence analyst, works border issues now, owes me for keeping some PTSD episodes off his official record. Can you trust him? More than most. He's been tracking cartel movements for years. If something big is happening at the border, he'll know. While Reed made arrangements, Ethan tried to rest. Sleep eluded him, his mind racing with possibilities and fears. Images of Sarah and Jamie, of Elena prisoners, of a man who had executed his family without hesitation. And beneath it all, a current of cold rage. 7 years of grief had crystallized into something harder, something that would not break again. By mid-afternoon, Reed returned with information and a visitor. Jackson Wright filled the doorway like a mountain given human form. At 45, the former Delta operator had the weathered look of a man who had seen the worst humanity offered and chosen to face it anyway. His handshake was brief, powerful, his eyes assessing Ethan with professional distance. You look like shit, was his greeting. Good to see you too, Jack. The ghost of a smile touched Jackson's face. Heard you needed some backup. More than some. Ethan gestured to Mike. Sheriff Mike Hernandez. He's with us. Jackson's gaze lingered on Mike, measuring. The one who knew about Torres watching you? The tension in the room spiked. Ethan hadn't expected Jackson to know that detail. How did you? I've been keeping tabs, Jackson replied simply. On you. On Torres. Old habits. The revelation settled something in Ethan. He hadn't been as alone as he'd thought. What do you know about his current operation? Jackson dropped a file on the desk. Enough to be concerned. He's been building infrastructure along the border for months. Shell companies purchasing land. Unusual equipment shipments. Movement of specialized personnel. What kind of personnel? Engineers. Former military with tunnel and mining experience. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. He's reopening the tunnels. Not just reopening, Jackson corrected. Expanding. Modernizing. My source says he's creating a subterranean highway. Reed returned with his contact, a thin, nervous man introduced only as Alvarez. The intelligence analyst brought satellite imagery showing increased activity at several points along the border. There's something big coming through, Alvarez explained. Massive shipment. We've been picking up chatter for weeks but couldn't locate the route. The tunnels would be perfect, Mike observed. Invisible to surveillance. Direct access to distribution networks. When? Ethan asked. Alvarez hesitated. That's the thing. All indicators point to tomorrow night. The timeline stunned them all. So soon. Too soon to mount an effective response. There's more. Alvarez continued. We've intercepted communications about leverage being held at a location 10 miles from the border. 3 individuals. Sarah, Jamie, Elena. They were alive at least for now. Show me, Ethan demanded. The location was an abandoned mining facility, a collection of weathered buildings and rusted equipment in the middle of nowhere. Satellite imagery showed minimal security, just a few vehicles, a handful of heat signatures. It's too easy, Jackson warned. Has to be a trap. Of course it is, Ethan agreed. Victor wants me there, wants to finish what he started 7 years ago. Then we don't go, Reed argued. We contact the authorities, let them handle it. Ethan shook his head. The authorities won't move without evidence, and by the time we convince them, those people will be dead. The room fell silent, each man wrestling with the implications, with the odds. I'll go, Ethan decided. Alone. The hell you will, Jackson growled. He's expecting a rescue attempt, expecting me to bring whatever force I can muster. If I go alone, I might surprise him. Mike leaned forward. And what happens when you're captured or killed? What happens to Sarah and the others then? The question hung in the air, unanswerable. There's another option, Reed said finally. A distraction. Give Torres something else to worry about. What kind of distraction? Ethan asked. The tunnels. His precious operation. If he believes that's threatened, he might divert resources from the mining facility. The plan took shape gradually. Jackson would lead a small team to the mining facility, a stealth approach focused on extraction, not confrontation. Meanwhile, Ethan and Mike would target the tunnel operation directly. We'll need more people, Mike pointed out. We're talking about a heavily fortified position. I might know someone, Ethan said, thinking of Dr. Reed's revelation about others who had been betrayed by Victor. By nightfall, they had assembled a ragtag group of allies, former operatives who had worked with Ethan, veterans with grievances against the system that had failed them, a handful of Border Patrol agents who had lost colleagues to cartel violence. Not an army, but perhaps enough to create the chaos they needed. As the others finalized preparations, Ethan found himself alone with Mike on the hospital roof. The city sprawled below them, a constellation of lights against the desert darkness. So many lives unaware of the shadow that had fallen across this corner of the world. You should go with Jackson, Ethan said. Help get Sarah and the others out. Mike shook his head. My mess to clean up. I'm staying with you. The simple declaration hung between them. Not quite forgiveness, not quite redemption, but a start. Why did you help me? Ethan asked. 7 years ago. You knew who I was, what I was running from. Why take the risk? Mike considered the question, his weathered face solemn in the dim light. Because I recognized something in you. The same thing I saw in the mirror every day. A good man who'd made an impossible choice. The words resonated in the silence that followed. 2 broken men standing at the edge of darkness, preparing to step into it willingly. If this goes wrong, Ethan said finally, Victor won't leave witnesses. I know. And if it goes right, there's no coming back. Not to the lives we had. Mike's smile was sad knowing. Those lives ended the moment Victor Torres entered them, Ethan. All that's left is making sure he pays for what he took. The desert night embraced them, vast and indifferent to the small dramas of human justice and vengeance. Above, stars wheeled in ancient patterns. Below, men made their plans and prepared for war. Dawn painted the horizon in blood and gold as Jackson's team departed. 4 men moving like shadows toward the abandoned mining facility where Sarah, Jamie, and Elena were held. Their mission was extraction only. Get in, get the hostages, get out. No heroics, no confrontation unless absolutely necessary. Ethan watched them go with a leaden feeling in his gut. So many variables, so many ways for things to go wrong. They'll make it, Mike said, reading his thoughts. Jackson knows what he's doing. It's not Jackson I'm worried about. Their own mission was equally fraught. Intelligence from Alvarez had identified the most likely entrance to the tunnel system, an abandoned ranch house 5 miles from the border. Satellite imagery showed increased activity there over the past weeks. Vehicles coming and going, equipment deliveries. By midday, they had assembled at a staging area 10 miles from the target. 12 men and women, a mix of veterans, law enforcement, and intelligence operatives, with personal reasons to see Victor Torres brought down. Their weapons were an assortment of legal firearms, hunting rifles, shotguns, service pistols. Nothing that would trigger federal investigation if things went sideways. Ethan outlined the plan one final time. We're not trying to take down the entire operation, just create enough disruption to draw attention away from the mining facility. Hit hard, hit fast, then disappear. And Torres asked a former DEA agent named Rodriguez. If he's there, the question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Torres is mine, Ethan said simply. No one argued. They had all seen the file, all understood what Victor had taken from him. As the others made final preparations, Ethan checked his weapon, a 9mm with custom grips that had served him through countless operations. It felt right in his hand, familiar, like greeting an old friend after a long absence. You ready for this? Mike asked, approaching. Being back in the game. Ethan considered the question. For 7 years, he had existed in a kind of purgatory, neither living nor dead, neither civilian nor operator. Now the familiar cold clarity of mission had returned, the focused purpose that had defined his earlier life. I never left the game, he realized aloud. Just took a long pause. The ranch house appeared deserted as they approached through the gathering dusk. A weathered 2-story structure with peeling paint and boarded windows. Only the tire tracks in the dust and the newly installed security cameras betrayed its true purpose. They split into 3 teams, one to secure the perimeter, one to breach the main house, one to locate the tunnel entrance. Ethan led the breach team, Mike at his side. The house's front door gave way with a splintering crash as they hit it with a portable ram. Inside, they met immediate resistance, 2 guards in the front room scrambling for weapons. The firefight was brief, brutal. One guard went down with a shot to the shoulder. The other surrendered, hands raised in panic. The tunnel! Ethan demanded, pressing his gun to the man's temple. Where is it? B basement, the guard stammered. Hidden door behind the washing machine. As Mike secured the prisoner, Ethan radioed the other teams. Entry team, we have location. Basement level concealed entrance. Proceed with caution. The basement revealed a sophisticated operation. The hidden door led to a reinforced corridor that sloped gradually downward. Modern lighting illuminated the passage. Ventilation systems hummed quietly, circulating fresh air. This isn't some makeshift smuggling tunnel, Mike observed as they advanced. This is military-grade infrastructure. Ethan nodded grimly. Victor doesn't do anything halfway. They encountered minimal resistance as they pushed deeper, most of the security focused outward, not expecting an attack from this direction. The few guards they encountered were quickly subdued or neutralized. After a quarter mile, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Equipment lined the walls, communications gear, monitoring systems, weapons racks. At the center, a large table held detailed maps of the tunnel network. Look at this, Mike called, examining the maps. It's extensive. Miles of tunnels, multiple exit points on both sides of the border. Ethan studied the layout, recognizing the genius of it. A subterranean highway invisible to surveillance, allowing for the movement of people and product on an industrial scale. We need to find the main operations center, he decided. That's where the command structure will be. Where Victor would be if he's here. They pressed on deeper into the labyrinth. The tunnels grew wider, more finished. Concrete replaced raw earth. Electric carts sat in charging stations ready to transport goods and personnel. And then they found it. A massive underground chamber carved from the bedrock itself. Inside, a hive of activity. Men loading packages onto small vehicles. Others monitoring computer systems. A command center worthy of a military installation. My God, Mike breathed. This isn't just for drugs or people. This is infrastructure. Ethan recognized the truth of it. Victor had built something permanent, something that would serve his operations for years to come. They retreated to a side tunnel to radio the other teams. The plan had been to create disruption, not engage in a frontal assault against superior numbers, but seeing the scale of the operation changed the calculus. "We need to take this whole thing down," Ethan said, "not just disrupt it, destroy it." "How?" Mike asked. "We don't have the firepower or the numbers." Ethan's gaze returned to the tunnel junction where they had seen the first equipment racks. "We don't need either, just the right target. The ventilation system, the tunnel's Achilles heel. Destroy that, and the entire network would become unusable within hours." As they retraced their steps, Ethan's radio crackled to life. Jackson's voice tense but controlled. "Package secured. Repeat, package secured. 3 civilians in custody en route to extraction point." Relief flooded through him. Sarah, Jamie, Elena safe. The mission had succeeded, but the transmission had another effect. Throughout the tunnel system, alarms began to sound. Security protocols activated as Victor's people detected the unauthorized communication. "We've been made," Mike warned, drawing his weapon. "They'll lock this place down." Ethan made a split-second decision. "New plan. We place charges on the ventilation system, then fight our way out the main entrance." They moved quickly, racing back to the equipment junction. From his pack, Ethan retrieved compact explosive charges brought for precisely this contingency. As he worked, Mike provided cover, exchanging fire with security forces moving to intercept them. 2 minutes, Ethan called, setting the final charge. "Then this whole section collapses." They ran bullets, chipping concrete around them. The tunnel curved upward, leading back toward the ranch house entrance. Ahead, they could see figures silhouetted against the exit light guards moving to cut off their escape. Mike took a hit, stumbling as a bullet grazed his thigh. Ethan caught him, half dragging him forward as he returned fire. Behind them, the first charge detonated. A concussive wave rushed through the tunnel, followed by the rumble of collapsing earth and concrete. "Keep moving," Ethan urged, supporting Mike's weight. Almost there. The exchange of gunfire intensified as they neared the exit. From his radio came fragmented reports from the other teams, similar resistance across the compound. Victor's people had mobilized in force, and then cutting through the chaos, a familiar voice. Calm, cultured, terrifying in its controlled rage. "Ethan Reeves," Victor Torres said, his voice carrying over the facility's PA system. "Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared for this? That I wouldn't anticipate your every move?" The words chilled Ethan to the bone. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Your friends at the mining facility," Victor continued, "did you think I didn't know about them too? That I wouldn't have contingencies in place?" Ethan's blood ran cold. "Jackson, report. Status of the package." Static answered him. Long seconds of silence that stretched into eternity. Then ambush. "Took the civilians. Need immediate—" The transmission cut off abruptly. Victor's voice returned, satisfied now, triumphant. "You see, Ethan, I've learned from our last encounter. I don't leave anything to chance anymore. Your friends, your allies, they're all compromised. Have been from the beginning." Ethan's mind raced, replaying events, searching for the flaw, the leak. Who could have known about their plans? Who had access to the details? And then, with terrible clarity, he understood. Mike saw the realization in his eyes. "Ethan, listen to me. Whatever you're thinking, it wasn't you." Ethan said, the pieces falling into place. "It was Reed, the doctor who had kept the autopsy files, who had connected them with Alvarez, who had known every detail of their operation. Victor got to him." Ethan continued, the betrayal fresh and burning. "Threatened him like he threatened you with your family." Mike's face reflected his own horror. "Then this whole thing was a trap from the beginning. The second explosive charge detonated more powerful than the first. The tunnel shook violently, dust and debris raining down around them. At least that part of the plan was working. The tunnel system would be unusable for weeks, if not months. But at what cost? We need to get to Jackson," Ethan decided. Now. They fought their way up and out, emerging into the gathering dusk. The ranch compound was in chaos, guards, running vehicles mobilizing. In the confusion, they made it to their own transport, a battered pickup parked half a mile away. As they sped toward the mining facility, Ethan tried repeatedly to raise Jackson on the radio. Nothing but static answered him. The desert landscape blurred around them, features indistinct in the fading light. Above the first stars appeared cold and distant witnesses to the unfolding tragedy. "We'll find them," Mike said, voice tight with pain from his wound. "We'll get them back." Ethan didn't respond. His mind was already racing ahead, calculating odds-forming plans. The cold clarity of mission had evolved into something else, something darker and more absolute. 7 years ago, he had run from Victor Torres, had hidden in grief and guilt, while the monster who killed his family went free. That ended tonight. The mining facility loomed ahead, silhouetted against the darkening sky. No lights, no movement, the stillness of a tomb. They approached cautiously, weapons ready. The front gate hung open, a mute invitation or warning. Inside, the compound was deserted. Jackson's vehicle remained doors open, equipment scattered nearby. Signs of a brief, violent struggle. In the main building, they found blood. Small pools on the concrete floor already drying. Shell casings. A broken radio Jackson's. But no bodies. No sign of their team or the hostages. "They took them," Mike concluded. "But where?" As if in answer, the radio in Ethan's hand crackled to life. Victor's voice calm and measured in the silence. "You've proven yourself resourceful as always, Ethan. I'm almost impressed." "Where are they?" Ethan demanded. "Safe. For now." The pause that followed was calculated for maximum effect. "Did you know your friend Sarah has a son, Jamie, I believe? Bright boy. Full of potential." The threat didn't need to be stated explicitly. It hung in the air between them, malevolent and real. "What do you want?" Victor's laugh was soft, almost gentle. "The same thing I've wanted for 7 years, Ethan. To finish our game. To see you break completely before you die. Tell me where. Just you and me." "Oh, it's never been just you and me," Victor replied. "That's what you never understood. There are always pawns in play. Always collateral damage." Shuckany. The radio fell silent for a long moment. When Victor spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, more direct. "The border. The original crossing point from the map at your little station. Midnight. Come alone, unarmed. If I see anyone else or any sign of weapons, they die." The transmission ended, leaving only static. Mike stared at Ethan, understanding, passing between them without words. "It's suicide." "I know. He'll kill you and them too." "Maybe." Ethan's mind was already calculating. Not how to survive, that was secondary now. How to ensure that whatever happened, Victor Torres didn't walk away. That Sarah, Jamie, and Elena had a chance, even if he didn't. The desert night deepened around them, stars emerging in constellations old as time. Somewhere out there in the vastness, Victor waited with his hostages, with his elaborate trap. Ethan checked his watch. 3 hours until midnight. 3 hours to plan how to turn a trap against its maker. The last hunt had begun. Moonlight transformed the desert, turned harshness into ethereal beauty, made shadows into living things. Ethan moved through this altered landscape like a ghost, a figure caught between worlds, between past and present, between vengeance and redemption. The meeting point Victor had chosen was no accident. The original border crossing from the Cold War map. A place where nations blurred and laws faded. A no-man's land of sand and stone and ancient grudges. Mike had argued against the plan, had offered to gather what remained of their allies, to mount a rescue operation. "It's what he expects," Ethan had explained. "He'll be watching for exactly that. So you're just going to walk in there, unarmed, alone?" "That's what he'll see." Understanding had dawned slowly in Mike's eyes. The deception within the submission. The trap within the trap. Now, as midnight approached, Ethan paused atop a small rise overlooking the rendezvous point. Below, an abandoned border station crumbled into the earth, its concrete walls eroded by time and weather, its purpose long forgotten by the nations it once divided. Through night vision binoculars, he surveyed the scene. 3 vehicles parked in the shadows, armed men positioned at strategic points, and in the center, barely visible through a glassless window, human shapes huddled together. Sarah, Jamie, Elena. Of Jackson and his team, there was no sign. Either held elsewhere or already gone. The thought settled like lead in Ethan's gut. The radio at his hip crackled. "I see you, Ethan." Victor's voice smooth with anticipation. "Always the professional, Always on time. Ethan didn't respond, knew he was being watched, knew the performance had already begun. Come down, Victor continued. Slowly, hands visible at all times. Taking a deep breath, Ethan began his descent, each step deliberate, each moment stretched by the knowledge of what was to come. The guards met him 50 yards from the station, efficient professional, military training evident in their movements. They searched him thoroughly, finding nothing, just as he'd planned. Inside, one ordered, shoving him forward. The interior of the station was a skeleton, walls stripped to concrete, floor covered in sand and debris. The moonlight entered through broken windows, casting knife-edge shadows across every surface. And there in what had once been an interrogation room, the hostages. Sarah knelt on the floor, arms bound behind her. Her face bore the marks of resistance, a split lip, a darkening bruise along her jawline. Beside her, Jamie sat with the rigid control of someone holding terror at bay through sheer will. Elena lay on her side, conscious but barely. Blood matted her hair where she had been struck. Her eyes, finding Ethan's, held both relief and warning. And standing behind them like a specter from Ethan's nightmares was Victor Torres. "Ethan," he said as if greeting an old friend. "At last." 7 years had changed Victor little. Still tall, still immaculate, even in this desolate place. His silver hair gleamed in the moonlight. His eyes remained cold, calculating. A predator's eyes. "Let them go," Ethan said. "Your quarrel is with me." Victor's smile was indulgent, amused. "My quarrel has never been just with you, Ethan. You were a symptom of a larger problem. A system that believed it could contain men like me. Control us. Use us." He moved forward, steps measured, confident. "You and I were not so different. Both created by the same machine. Both betrayed by it in the end." "I never targeted innocent families," Ethan replied, voice hard. "I never executed women and children to cover my tracks." Something flashed in Victor's eyes. A momentary fracture in the composure. "Collateral damage. In my business, it's inevitable. Is that what you told yourself when you gave the order to kill Lisa, to kill Emma?" The names burned in Ethan's throat. That they were just collateral damage. Victor studied him, head tilted slightly, fascinated by the pain he had caused. "I told myself they were leverage, a message you would understand. Apparently I was wrong." The casual cruelty of it staggered Ethan. The complete absence of remorse. "Your wife died quickly, if that's any consolation," Victor continued. "The child, less so. She asked for you at the end." The world narrowed to a pinpoint of rage, of absolute clarity. Every muscle in Ethan's body tensed, ready to launch him forward despite the armed men, despite the futility. Only Sarah's voice broke through the red haze. "Ethan, don't! Please!" Reality reasserted itself. The plan, the timing, the trap not yet sprung. Victor smiled, reading the conflict on Ethan's face. "You see, still the same man, still ruled by emotion when it matters most." He gestured, and one of his men stepped forward, handed him a sleek black case. Inside, nestled in foam, lay a hypodermic syringe filled with clear liquid. "Do you know what this is?" Victor asked, lifting it to catch the moonlight. "Succinylcholine, the same compound found in your family's systems. Poetic, don't you think?" Understanding dawned with sickening clarity. "You're going to make it look like I killed them, like I snapped after all these years." "A murder-suicide. Tragic, but not unexpected given your history, your mental state." Victor shrugged. "The authorities will close the case within days. And no one looks at the tunnels," Ethan concluded, "at your operation." "Precisely." The timing was crucial now, the pieces moving into final position. Ethan needed to keep Victor talking, keep his attention focused here. "How did you find me?" he asked. "After all these years?" Victor's smile widened. "I never lost you, Ethan. I knew where you were within days of your disappearance. Your little border station, your pathetic attempt at a new life. Then why wait? Why 7 years? Because watching you suffer was gratifying." Victor's voice dropped intimate now, confessional. "Seeing you diminish, seeing you haunt that place like a ghost. It was better than killing you quickly." The admission was so casually evil, so matter-of-factly cruel, that Ethan could only stare. But then the tunnels became operational, Victor continued, and the risk of you interfering became greater than the pleasure of watching you decay. A slight sound drew Ethan's attention to Sarah. Her eyes were fixed on something beyond him, through the broken window, a shadow moving in shadows. Mike, right on schedule. Your operation is finished, Ethan said, voice rising slightly. A signal. The tunnels collapsed. Your infrastructure destroyed. Anger flashed across Victor's face. Temporary setbacks. The primary system remains intact. Within weeks, everything will be operational again. Not if you're removed from the equation. Victor laughed, genuinely amused. And who would do that? You came here to die, Ethan. No. Ethan met his gaze steadily. I came here to watch you lose. Everything. The first explosion came from the north, a brilliant flash followed by a concussive wave that rattled the station's remains. Victor's head snapped toward the sound eyes, widening in momentary shock. The main tunnel entrance, Ethan explained. The one you left guarded by your second-best team while you came here. A second explosion from the east, then a third from the south, each precisely timed, each targeting a critical node in Victor's network. You see, Victor, you made a fundamental mistake. Ethan continued as chaos erupted outside, guards shouting, engines starting. You assumed I was still the same man, still playing by the same rules. Victor's composure cracked. What have you done? I contacted the DEA, Homeland Security, everyone you've spent years evading. Gave them everything. The tunnel locations, your shell companies, the names of your collaborators in government. The radio at Victor's belt erupted with frantic voices. Reports of coordinated raids, of teams being overwhelmed, of assets seized. Impossible, Victor hissed. You were watched, every communication monitored. Not all of them, Ethan replied. While you were focused on me on this theatrical endgame, others were moving pieces you couldn't see. The sound of approaching helicopters filtered through the broken roof. Searchlights swept the desert, converging on their location. Victor's control shattered completely. Kill them, he ordered his men. Kill them all. Now. The guards hesitated for a crucial second. In that heartbeat of indecision, the world exploded into motion. Mike burst through the door, weapon raised. 2 quick shots dropped the nearest guards before they could react. Elena, who had been slowly working her bonds loose, launched herself at the man standing over her. Her shoulder caught him at knee level, toppling him with a cry of surprise. Jamie threw himself sideways, knocking Sarah clear of the line of fire as one of the remaining guards opened fire. Ethan moved directly for Victor. No weapon, no plan beyond taking the monster down with him if necessary. Victor backed away, drawing a sleek pistol from beneath his jacket. Still the fool? He sneered, taking aim at Ethan's chest. Still bringing honor to a knife fight? The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Ethan felt the impact before the pain, a hammer blow to his shoulder that spun him half around. He stumbled but didn't fall. Couldn't fall. Not yet. Victor adjusted his aim, preparing for a killing shot. His face showed nothing, no anger, no triumph. Just the cold efficiency of a machine completing its function. The second shot never came. Elena, having subdued her guard, had retrieved his fallen weapon. Without hesitation, she fired. The bullet caught Victor in the side, spinning him against the wall. Blood blossomed across his immaculate shirt. Surprise registered on his face, followed by fury. He turned his weapon toward Elena, finger tightening on the trigger. Mike's shot took him in the shoulder-shattering bone. The pistol fell from nerveless fingers. Ethan closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His fist connected with Victor's jaw with all the force of 7 years of grief behind it. The man collapsed, conscious but unable to rise. Outside, the helicopters were landing, armed agents swarming the compound, the operation reaching its endgame. Ethan stood over Victor, breathing heavily. The wounded shoulder throbbed distantly, adrenaline holding the worst of the pain at bay. This is where you kill me, Victor said through bloodied lips. Where you get your revenge. The temptation was overwhelming. To end it here. To close the circle that had begun with his family's murder. No, Ethan said finally. Not because you deserve to live, but because I deserve to be free of you. The look on Victor's face was worth every moment of the past 7 years. The utter incomprehension. The realization that in the end, he had failed to break what he had set out to destroy. As DEA agents entered the room securing the scene, and the prisoner, Ethan, turned away. Toward Sarah and Jamie being untied by Mike. Toward Elena holding a compress to her head wound. "Is it over?" Sarah asked as he approached. "Really over?" Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of years beginning to lift. "Yes, he's finished." Elena moved to his side, examining his shoulder with professional detachment. "You need a hospital." "Later," he replied. "First, there's something else I need to know." He turned to face her fully. "Victor called you his leverage, but you fought against him. Why?" Elena's expression hardened. "Because he's my brother, and because he killed our father to take control of the organization." The revelation landed like a physical blow. "Your brother. You knew who he was all along." "Yes." No apology in her voice, no evasion. "I came to Last Frontier to find you, to understand why Victor was so obsessed with a broken ex-soldier hiding in the desert." "To kill me," Ethan guessed. "At first, yes." Her eyes held his unflinching. "I blamed you for the manhunt that forced him underground, for destroying what our family had built." "What changed?" Elena glanced toward Victor being led away in handcuffs. "I learned the truth about what he did to our father, about what he did to your family." Her voice softened slightly. "And I saw who you really were, a man trying to atone for surviving when his family didn't." The truth of her words resonated deep within him, the core of his exile, his penance. "Will you testify against him?" Ethan asked. "Yes." No hesitation. "Some family ties deserve to be cut." As agents began processing the scene, a familiar figure emerged from the chaos. Jackson Wright, battered but alive, supported by 2 DEA agents. "Thought you were dead," Ethan said as they approached. Jackson's grim smile didn't reach his eyes. "Nearly was. They hit our extraction point hard. Lost 2 good men." The victory was tempered by grief, by the knowledge that triumph always carried a cost. Dawn found them at a field hospital established at the border station. Wounds treated, statements given, the full machinery of justice grinding slowly into motion. Ethan sat outside watching the sun reclaim the desert, the morning light revealing a landscape both harsh and beautiful, unforgiving yet somehow nurturing to those who understood its rhythms. Mike joined him, arm in a sling that matched Ethan's own. DEA says they've seized over $200 million in assets already. Tunnels, warehouses, shell companies. Victor's entire infrastructure. And the people, 27 arrests so far. More coming. This goes deep, Ethan. Government officials, law enforcement, military contractors. The scope of Victor's operation was still revealing itself. The cancer had spread further than any of them had imagined. "What about you?" Ethan asked. "After this," Mike looked toward the horizon. "Retirement. For real this time. Maybe somewhere with water. I've seen enough desert to last several lifetimes." The easy camaraderie between them had been restored. Not unchanged, the betrayal had left its mark, but perhaps stronger for having been tested. "And you?" Mike asked. "Where does Ethan Reeves go from here?" The question hung in the crisp morning air. For 7 years, Ethan had existed in a holding pattern, a life suspended by grief and guilt. Now with Victor captured and the truth revealed, the future yawned before him, vast and uncertain. "I don't know," he admitted. "I haven't thought beyond this moment." It was true, every action, every decision for 7 years had been shadowed by what happened to his family, by the need for justice or vengeance or simple understanding. Sarah emerged from the medical tent, Jamie at her side. They approached cautiously as if uncertain of their welcome in this moment of reflection. "The doctors say we can leave in a few hours," she said. "Back to, well, not home anymore." The Last Frontier was gone, burned to its foundations. Another casualty in Victor's campaign of destruction. "You could rebuild," Ethan suggested. "The insurance would cover it." Sarah shook her head. "No, that chapter's closed. For all of us." Jamie, who had been unnaturally quiet since the rescue, finally spoke. "What about the people, the ones who were being trafficked through the tunnels?" The question reflected a maturity beyond his years. A concern for others in the midst of personal trauma. Safe, Mike answered. Border Patrol found 53 people being held at a warehouse near the main tunnel entrance. They're being processed now, given medical attention. Some good at least had come from the destruction. Some lives saved or improved in the aftermath of violence. Elena was the last to join them, her head bandaged but her stride purposeful. In the morning light, she looked both younger and older than before, unburdened by secrets yet marked by their weight. The DEA wants me to consult on the case, she told them. I know more about Victor's operation than anyone except Victor himself. Will you do it? Ethan asked. Yes. Her decision seemed to have been made long before this moment. I helped build parts of this. Now I'll help dismantle it completely. The five of them stood in a loose circle connected by circumstance and survival, by shared trauma and shared triumph. An unlikely family forged in fire. So what now? Jamie asked, voicing the question hanging over all of them. Ethan looked across the desert toward the border that had defined so much of his recent life, the invisible line between nations, between past and future. Now we choose, he said simply. For the first time in a long time, we all get to choose. 6 months later, the desert bloomed after unexpected rains. Wildflowers carpeted the normally barren landscape, colors that seemed impossible against the red earth and endless sky. On the site where the last frontier had stood, a new structure was rising. Not a gas station or diner, but a rehabilitation center. A place for veterans and survivors of trafficking, a sanctuary in the midst of vastness. Ethan surveyed the construction from the shade of a newly planted mesquite tree. The physical wounds had healed, leaving only faint scars. The deeper wounds, those 7 years in the making, were healing more slowly, but healing nonetheless. Sarah had used the insurance money and a grant from a veterans charity to fund the center. She moved between the workers with confidence, clipboard in hand, vision becoming reality under her direction. Jamie had returned to school, real school, not homeschooling. The trauma had left its mark, but his resilience was remarkable. Already talking about college, about psychology or social work, ways to help others who had experienced what he had. Elena appeared at Ethan's side, silent, until she stood shoulder to shoulder with him. It's taking shape, she observed, faster than I expected. Sarah is determined. This was true. The widow had revealed a steel core beneath her quiet exterior, a capacity for rebuilding that humbled them all. Heard from Mike? Elena asked. Yes, settled in San Diego. Says the ocean is better company than the desert, but he misses the quiet. Elena smiled, a rare expression that transformed her serious face. He'll be back. Men like Mike, like you. The desert gets in your blood. The observation struck Ethan as profoundly true. The desert, with its harsh beauty and unforgiving nature, shaped those who dwelled within it. Stripped away pretense, revealed character in its purest form. Victor's trial starts next month, Elena said after a comfortable silence. They want us both to testify. Ethan nodded. The final chapter in a story, 7 years in the writing. Will you be ready? Yes. Her certainty was absolute. Some ghosts need to be faced in the light. Another truth simply stated. Elena had a gift for cutting to the heart of matters. They watched as a truck arrived carrying the metal sculpture Ethan had commissioned. A twisted, beautiful thing of iron and copper. An abstract representation of transformation. Workers began unloading it, positioning it near what would be the center's entrance. What will you call it? Elena asked. The memorial, I thought. Remembrance. No, the center. Ethan considered this. Sarah had left the naming to him, insisting it was his vision as much as hers. Last frontier, he decided. Because for many who come here, it will be. Elena nodded approval. A good name. A place of ending and beginning. Like the desert itself. Like life in its most essential form. As the sun began its descent, painting the landscape in amber and gold, Ethan felt the last weight lift from his shoulders. Victor was gone from his life, awaiting justice in a cell. The truth about Lisa and Emma was known not just to him, but to the world. And in this place where he had hidden for so long, something new was growing. Something built not from fear or grief, but from hope and purpose. That evening after the workers had departed, Ethan stood alone before the metal sculpture. Its surface, still bright with newness, would weather with time, would take on the patina of age and experience, would become part of the landscape rather than separate from it. With a small hammer and chisel, he carefully etched 3 names into its base: Lisa Reeves, Emma Reeves, Michael Hernandez. Those lost, those remembered. Above them, he added a 4th, Sarah Collins. Not lost, but forever changed by what had happened here, by the courage she had shown in the face of terror. Standing back, he surveyed his work, simple, permanent, a testament not just to loss, but to survival, to the possibility of rebuilding after devastation. The desert night embraced him, stars emerging in familiar patterns overhead. The silence was absolute, broken only by the occasional call of a night bird or distant coyote. In that stillness, Ethan felt a presence, not supernatural, but memory given weight and substance by love, by the knowledge that those we lose are never truly gone while we remember them. "I kept my promise," he whispered to the empty air. "It's over now. You can rest." And somewhere between the stars and the earth, in that liminal space where grief meets acceptance, Ethan Reeves found his own frontier, his own boundary between what was and what could be. He crossed it without looking back, stepping into a future unwritten, but his own to choose at last. The desert remained as it had always been, ancient, patient, indifferent to the small dramas of human lives played out upon its surface. But within its vastness, something had changed. A wound had healed, a circle had closed, and in the place where endings and beginnings met, a new story was waiting to be told. Deserts don't keep secrets, they transform them. The blood-soaked sand bleaches white under relentless sun. Bullet casings rust, then vanish. Even scars fade, though they never disappear completely. 7 years of exile ended not with the vengeance he sought, but with the freedom he needed. The ghosts still visit, but they no longer command. They witness instead. What began as one man's pursuit of justice revealed a darkness stretching across borders, through agencies, into the machinery of power itself. Some monsters wear suits. Some heroes wear their wounds openly. Most of us live in the spaces between. The last frontier stands rebuilt not as a way station for travelers passing through, but as sanctuary for those with nowhere else to go. The broken finding strength in shared fractures, veterans, survivors, those learning to live after merely existing. In the desert, endings and beginnings blur like horizon lines. What looks like death often nurtures life beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. We all stand at our own frontier's boundaries, between who we were and who we might become, between vengeance and justice, between memory and obsession. The question isn't whether we'll cross these lines, but who we'll be when we reach the other side. Some wounds never heal completely, but perhaps they're not meant to. Perhaps they're meant to remind us why we survived,